Hi, I'm Simon Canton. This is the fifth part in my ongoing series on how I write a novel. In this part, I'll show you how to use Dan Wells' 7-act structure to create interesting character arcs. Dan Wells has created videos himself explaining it, which I'd highly recommend. There are links in the description. Alright, so I think the easiest way to show how I use the 7-act structure is to show it in action. Okay, so I'm going to try and use Dan Wells' 7-act structure live to actually show you how I come up with some of my character arcs. So first thing I'm going to do is put in all of my characters and major plot points. So I've got Kyra, got Balthazar, the Xenomigrants, the general public, politicians, and then the plot in general. I'll just adjust all of these. Like that. Okay. So the general public is probably the easiest one, so I'm going to start with that. So in the creation of the snowflake plot, I've come up with that the general public end up thinking Balthazar is a hero and worshipping him. So according to Dan Wells' 7-act structure, that means that the start of the plot has to be the opposite point in order to make it interesting. So they think Balthazar is a in the start of the plot, they think Balthazar is a money grubber with no morals, and they hate him, because that gives me a nice arc towards the end. So the midpoint is next. So the general public mind as Balthazar needs a war effort. So the conflict then, the first conflict will be that the general public need to see Balthazar taking some kind of a lead in order that they'll then change their mind as he leads the war effort. So we'll say public So the general public sees solidarity save Copenhagen from disaster from the Xenomigrants. So the pinch, where something will go wrong, will be more Xenomigrants. So more Xenomigrants land, and Balthazar says he needs help to fight them. So that would kind of push the general public into joining his war effort. But then the general public, so the second pinch is where we're unlikely to achieve our resolution. So let's say that the general public Balthazar down the first Xenomigrant. So if the general public found out that Balthazar brought down the first Xenomigrant, that would be a good reason for them to not want him to be their leader. And then if he's going to end up as their leader, maybe Baltazar sounds than the change in the war effort since he took over. So that would be quite good, I think, is a reason why they'd still want him in charge anyway. Just add to that. He says that he does what he needs to be done, which isn't a lie. I mean, he's in the start of the book, from what we have from our snowflake, the general public is ignoring the problem. So all of humanity is going to get wiped out if no one does anything. So the xenomigrant being put on Earth is probably the only way to get them to do anything. So the xenomigrants. So the resolution is going to be they're defeated and eliminated from the solar system. So the opposite end has to be thousands. I think millions would be too much. There are thousands of them in the outer solar system. They've been feeding on the troops sent and have several hives. So, I'll add to that. And they're spreading out to more inner moons and planets. So I'm thinking, you know, beyond Saturn, but moving slowly towards the center of the solar system, so they're not going to be, it's not going to take them long to get to Earth. So the midpoint there would be if they're pushed back into the outer solar system to their hives, so they stop their progress, would be a good midpoint, I think. So let's see. So plot turn 1 would be the troops stop, I think, coming from Weaver Corp. So the xenomigrants, I was thinking about this. They're out in the outer solar system and there's not very much there. So they need to have some kind of food or something that's keeping them going. So I thought, well, the Weaver Corp has been sending 500 troops a month for over a decade. And none of them have really come back, other than a few. So that could be their source of food, is the troops that are being sent out there. As you can see from the video, you should start from where the story will end. You should already have an idea of what will happen at the end. Just like in snowflaking, I'm writing down what I know and then using that to come up with what I don't. Here's what the spreadsheet looks like after I'm done. Okay, so here we are about 20 minutes later with the same spreadsheet. So I've filled in all of the details, doing the same as I did with the other ones. I start with the resolution, then I give an opposite point, and then I do the midpoint, then plot turn 1, then the pinch, then plot pinch 2, and the plot turn 2. So to give you an example, Kyra, I said that at the end of this book she's going to be a war hero having saved humanity. So that means that she needs to be branded a deserter at the start of the book, in order, that's the opposite point, to give it an actual arc. So Kyra destroying a first hive on Mars. So this is something that this spreadsheet has thrown up for me, is that there has to be then a hive on Mars that Kyra can destroy, which actually came up in one of the other parts. I can't find it here now, but So in filling out, so I started from the least important, or the least, the furthest from the center of the story, and then went to the towards the center of the story. So I started with the general public, then I did the xenomigrants, because while they're the main baddies, they're not very intelligent or anything. Then I went to the politicians. And when I did the politicians, then I found out that there's actually a rival corporation, which I didn't know about before, but now I know. So I've added that to a list of new actors. Down in this spreadsheet is just new characters that I'm going to have to come up with. So there's a rival corporation and rival corporation head. There's the lead politician. Since I have the politicians, it'd be a good idea to have someone representing them. So I said the Prime Minister of the NCP, and then the RCC should probably have a lead politician, but he'll be less important. Then I did Balthazar, because he has fairly, I knew fairly well what he was going to do. So he ends up as dictator of the world, believing he knows what's best for humanity, which means that at the start he'd have to be an outcast. So he's living on Svalbard with 1,000 troops, 1,000 of his own troops protecting him. So the midpoint for that would be that he's put in charge of the RCC and NCP war effort. And then, so the connecting those two, going from an outcast to being put in charge, he lands xenomigrants on Earth and uses Kyra's badass squad to kill them. And then a corporation also starts killing the xenomigrants before they can get to them, so that's proving that they're worthwhile too. Yeah, and then the second pinch is the war efforts aren't going well enough. So Balthazar sabotages the rival corporation and they're wiped out. So that's basically how it goes. Start with the end, what you want. You can kind of work out in general terms what you want at the end of the story. Then you can work out, okay, what's the opposite of that? Then you put in the midpoint, the point at which you stop. You go from the initial start of the story to the end of the story, and then you work out the different events that would lead you between those points. So the next thing to do with this is to come up with an ordered list. An ordered list is where you take each of these cells here and try and put them in order of what order they'll happen in the story. So I'm going to go and do that, and I'll come back when I've done that. This 7-act structure took me a total of an hour to do, and it really does elevate the story. You can't have bland characters if they're changing so much during the story. The last thing I need to do with the 7-act structure is to combine all of the acts into one long list. So this is the 7-act structure document in its final state. So what I've done is I've gone in and I've picked whatever I think happens first in the story. So in this case I chose there are thousands of xenomigrants in the outer solar system. They've been feeding on the troops and have several hives. They're spreading out to more inner moons and planets. So that's a reasonable start of the story. So I copied that, put it into the ordered list at the top, and then marked that one green. And then I looked for what might happen next out of all of the different 7 acts. So next I took general public think Balthazar is a money grubber with no morals and they hate him. So that's the start of our story as well. So I took that, marked it in green, and just kept doing that for everything. So this 7-act structure, some of the things don't make sense, they contradict each other. But that's okay, because we're not finished yet. The 7-act structure is just coming up with more ideas, so that then we can combine that with the 4th snowflake we had from the previous step, and come up with even more plot points. I then copy this list back into Scrivener, and I now have 2 plots for the same story. Once I have these 2 plots, the next step is to combine them, iron out any contradictions, and create a setback reaction plot. I'll go into all of those steps in the next video. I've included a link to the Excel spreadsheet from this video in the description, so you can download it if you'd like. Thanks for watching.